Good morning. So in the theme of Libra and Aries axis that we're working on with the nodes this year and next, it's all about, as I'm sure you've been hearing, about the self, Aries, and the other, Libra. But there's more to it than that. It's about clearing out energies that we no longer need, that are getting in the way of relating with others. And also as well, a part of that process is about perhaps creating some boundaries. We've had Saturn in Pisces since March last year, March the 7th, 2023. Saturn entered Pisces. And since then, we have been having a wake-up call, shall we say, to some of the ideologies that we've had in our lives. And let's face it, everything is to do with relationships, no matter which way you cut it. Every part of our lives, we interact with people. Maybe, you know, apart from when we're at home alone, maybe. That might be one area of your life where if you do live alone, then you get to not interact with people. But mostly, we're always relating, aren't we? Even if it's just to ourselves. So the Libra and Aries axes are bringing that to the forefront in a much more highlighted way in how we balance our relationships, Libra, and how we maintain our independence, Aries, how we initiate things, Aries. Now, the North Node is in Aries, so that is where the universe is guiding us at the, on this axis that we're working through right now, this year and part of next year. So including in that, I thought it was important to think about, well, it's actually, I have had to think about this because my Saturn is in, Saturn is in Pisces in my chart in the 7th house of relationships. So the minute that hit, so all of a sudden it really was a sobering effect on some of my relationships, long-term relationships, one-to-one. It fell for mine in, there was things going on as well. There was a sextile as well that helped the process last year. I think it was a sextile between Neptune and Saturn, I believe, last year. Now that really helped me make some changes for the better. It wasn't easy and it was really painful, but it was very much necessary. Now, I'm sure that somewhere in your life you've been having similar experiences. Now, to get to the point, what I've been learning about is how, within myself, is how Saturn has been helping me understand that I need more boundaries in my relationships, even with myself as well, like more self-discipline, everything Saturn related. And as I was processing all of this and reflecting on it, it got me thinking about my rights and how they've been violated in the past and how that's made building boundaries difficult. I didn't even know what they were until a few years back. I didn't even know I had rights because I was brought up in quite an oppressive environment. That was obviously that's through my filter. For me, it was very oppressive. And for me, it was very patriarchal. And I just couldn't get on board with that in that it was just very, very oppressive, as I say, glorifying status and on the narcissistic scale, I would say, the environment I was in. So that has come to a close. And since Saturn went into Pisces in my chart, it's been in the roots area of my family and in how I relate to others on a one-to-one. And having Pisces in the 7th house, you know, I've had to let go of self-martyrdom, self-blame, victimhood. That's my cat's making that noise. It's Jess. And I've had to let go of, oh, wow. I had to let go of the sense of disempowerment, and the only way to do that sometimes is to actually let go of some past, the way you relate, take a break, etc. So boundaries are what I want to talk about today. And when I was reflecting on boundaries, I bought a book about it because I had not got a clue whether I was actually sure of I wanted to know more, so I did buy a book about it. I can put that on the link below, what the book's called. There's another one I'm going to read that follows on from that. And as I was reflecting on that, I realised something. I realised that all the planets describe the rights we have individually. And I like that. I found it a really joyful and uplifting experience to think about the planets in terms of what rights we have. So without further ado, how about I go through some of those? Let's start with the sun. So the sun, of course, is a luminary, not a planet, but I often talk about it as if it is a planet. Same with the moon, the sun and the moon. So let's start with the sun. So the sun is the right to express yourself. When we look at it through this lens, the right to express yourself, the right to shine, the right to your own separate identity. Identity is a big one. Your right to follow your soul's calling in this lifetime. The right to shine your light for the length of period that feels right for you, and then you can retract that when the time's right. But it's putting your energy out there in whatever vibrancy is necessary for you, which in whatever way that it resonates with you. You know, your frequency might need to be expressed in quite a loud way, in which case, you know, you have the right to do so. You have the right to take up space, and that can be sometimes difficult if you're around people who have issues with that, and then your brightness might then make them feel, it points out to them things that they wish they could feel or do or whatever. And the important thing there is to remember to keep shining the light. That's been one of my lessons, is to not let other people put you off from expressing yourself as an individual. So that's the sun. There's much more that you could draw from. Anything you can think about, you know, the themes of the sun. You have the right to, let's look at Mercury. So Mercury is about communication and information and the exchange of words, whether that be written, spoken, sang, in any verbal capacity, thought processes, how we think about things. You've got the right to your own opinion, how we voice our thoughts, how we search for information, the right to information, the right to give information. That's just a small piece of it. The right to the duality of thought, and to change your mind because new information has arisen, or something's just changed in you. You went underneath, and you, just like Mercury does, lives in two worlds. We went under, found out new information, brought it up to the surface, and changed your thought processes. You have the right to, we have the right to speak our truth. We have the right to ask for advice and ask for information. I'm sure you can probably, there'll be somebody out there like myself, I'm sure, who was shut down many a time in their childhood, who weren't allowed to say what they thought with any real passion. And it was very much discouraged. So the communication, having the right to communicate. Let's look at Venus. Venus, the right to love, the right to be loved, the right to your own desires, the right to your own sensuality and your expression of that, in however form that comes. The right to be gentle, the right to enjoy beauty, the right to have a love of anything that you love, the pleasures in life, the right to taste life, the right to be abundant, the right to feel lovable and to be loved. So we can go through all these planets, right from the inner planets, which is the more personal, everyday experiences in our lives, and notice, where do you feel you need more boundaries? Are your rights being experienced? Are you experiencing the right to communicate? And whereabouts in your life is that communication perhaps being thwarted? We are experiencing another eclipse on April the 8th. I'm just looking at the chart now. And we do have Chiron, the wounded healer, sitting right next to the sun. So how we express ourselves in our daily lives and how we feel about ourselves in our identity in the Aries energy is all part of this next eclipse that we're going to experience, which I will talk about in a separate video. But to continue with the rights and the right to have the boundaries that we need in our lives. And I think I'm talking about the rights to express all those different parts of ourselves that come in the form of the planetary energy when we talk in astrology terms within us in our own unique way, because it's going to be different for everybody depending on where the placement is. But we've talked about the communication, we've talked about the right to feel loved and nurtured and express ourselves in the way we want to, in our the things to enjoy, the right to choose the things that you enjoy doing and to pursue those things, which is then leads me to Mars, because Mars is about pursuit. It's about where we take action in our lives. Well, it's the right to take action. Think about that too. Think about where in your life you may not act when you want to act for whatever reason. It could be related to you could go back in the list of planets and say, whereabouts in my life, or what planets, when Jennifer was talking about the planets, which planets resonated with me and made me feel a little bit contracted or expansive, because that's a good clue as to where you are at. And if you think of it in terms of how you relate to others as well, then you might even be talking about your chart and the aspects in it. If you want any help with that, please do contact me. Again, the information will be in the link below to my website and the services I offer. I can give you a chart reading and we can start to unpick some of these things, these themes that we're working with in this lifetime. But sorry, I digress. So Venus we've talked about. We're talking about Mars, the planet of action. So the right to act in a way with passion and with forthrightness. It depends on whereabouts your Mars is in your natal chart as to how and what condition it's in, what you find easier to do with Mars. It could be a bit conflicted, and so you have to work quite hard to work around those things. It could be placed in a position that's more challenging. But generally, and this is a general chat here about the planets, Mars has a natural desire to go forth with a warrior and an attitude, and it's got a fight to it, and it's got a certainty to it, and it's very quick and fast and wants to get the job done, and it's got real vigor to it. And the right to have that in your life is your right. It's the right to act and the right to make the decisions you want to make in your life. So the next planet, we could talk about Saturn. Saturn is the planet of limitations, and is actually the planet of karma. The choice points we've made in our lives and where we're at with that. It's the teacher. So we've got the right to learn. We've got the right to receive the karma that we've produced in our lives so that we can learn. We've got the right to make mistakes so that we can learn. We've got the right to have a limitation in our lives and to say stop when we feel we need to put that boundary up. So when I think about boundaries, I think about Saturn, and Saturn being in Pisces is expressing all of those limits that we need and dissolving limits we don't need. I've got Neptune in there as well, helping us out with that. But Saturn is the planet of lessons. So we've got the right to learn from our mistakes, which is the karma, I guess. And we've got the right to be disciplined in our way of moving through the world, to create structure. We've got the right for that. We've got the right to not feel the chaos so much, which is where the boundaries can help, can't it, to reduce that sense of chaos. And then moving on from there, let's look at Uranus. So Uranus is the opposite of Saturn, in that there is no container for Uranus. Uranus likes to be free and to live. So for you, that it would express itself in what area of your life do you have the right to rebel. So what area in your life at the moment do you feel limited in your relationships to actually make some radical changes, or to stand up for the things that you think are important, that also reflect in the wider world of your wider community. You have the right to defend your community. You have the right to be involved in humanitarian projects. You have the right to make radical changes that are shocking. You've got the right to be shocking, because everybody's got it somewhere in their chart, the ability to shock somewhere in your life. Area of your life you might be more volatile. Although I wouldn't call it volatile, I would just call it very, very radical, and sort of like the mad scientist, the just doing things differently, uniqueness, being your unique, authentic self, and not needing the approval of anyone else. Not to say you don't want to fit in, but just you don't have to, and at the cost of your own unique blueprint and what you came here to express in this world. Creating change, having the right to try to change something that's not working. And sometimes it requires that shock. Sometimes it's shocking because it can't be predicted. The right to spontaneity could be part of that Uranus influence. And then we can look towards Neptune. So Neptune would be the right to have a spiritual outlook that is a vastness of infinity, and to believe in that, and to have faith that, and trust that things are going to just work out. You have the right to have faith that things are going to work out. And when I think about Neptune, which I very much enjoy the experience of, I think about how it's a large part of the energy of Neptune is the things you just can't see. So you do have to just believe. It's about having faith. And I've just realised I've missed Jupiter. Because Jupiter is about having faith as well. And there's a spiritual component, largely a very spiritual component. As with all of the planets, there's a nature to them, of course, that serves us in that way. But Neptune, I'll go back to Jupiter in a moment, but Neptune is like the right to believe in something higher than oneself, and to believe in in the not knowing and the trusting, and it just goes so much wider than what Jupiter does. Jupiter is expansive, but there is a limit with it. At some point it stops, it seeks and seeks and seeks, and then it stops seeking and then goes and teaches. And there's a sureness to the Jupiter of knowing. It's like an optimism that's, I've found it, you know. Whereas I would say Neptune is a never-ending search, knowing that there is never really a true truth, because it depends on whose lens you're looking at to get that truth. It's not anything you can really grasp, the Neptune energy. So it's the right to not know, it's the right to float, it's the right to dream, it's the right to be creative in that not knowing place. It's the right to get your information from spirit as opposed to the here and now and 3D. So I would go as far as to say that Neptune is 5D and beyond. And then we've got Pluto, which is the right to sexuality, sexual expression, the right to intimate relationships in a very emerging capacity, the right to transform your own pain and suffering into something completely different, the right to step into the darkness for a very long period of time if necessary, in order to transform that dark into something much better. But it's the right to pain, one could say, the right to actually go through the process of transformation, and of just that not knowing process. And what I wanted to say at the beginning, which I didn't say, is that the bigger picture of all this could well be argued to be Pluto, because Pluto is the planet of evolution, and it's the long game, you know. It's the furthest away from the sun. Mars is the short game, but it's all important, because without the initial spark of initiation, we're not going to get to the long game and everything in between, which leads me to the moon, which is the ongoing cycles that we experience throughout the month. So we have the right to change with those cycles. We have the right to change our mood throughout, because every 2.5 days it changes signs. So that would be the smallest cycle. And then the larger cycle is when we look at the whole picture, which is why having a natal chart reading is actually really useful, because when we look at things individually on their own, we take tiny pieces out. It can be really useful, but it can be really exaggerated, and then we don't necessarily have it in perspective. So I think we have to be careful about just taking just small pieces of information. If you really want to get a full picture, then I suggest you actually maybe go and have a reading with whoever resonates. Again, my details are below. If you want to contact me, if you're resonating with me, you know, and it feels right, that's really important. It's got to resonate with you. Always choose an astrologer who you just feel like it's the right thing. And then you can't really go far wrong, I think. Trust your intuition. And get a reading and find out a bit more about how all these eclipse energies are affecting you. Where is Saturn freeing you up and limiting you at the moment through the transits? So thank you for listening, and I hope that was helpful and interesting for you, and I'll catch up with you soon to talk about the energy paintings that I do that can be found on my YouTube site, Jennifer Ladd Art. I'm an astrologer, and I'm an artist, and a galactic medium artist, where I channel the colours from the universe, and I can paint your higher self if that interests you, and messages from it. So without further ado, I shall leave you to have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.